6 o'clock. And just an announcement that this meeting will be recorded. It'll be conducted openly in a non-disruptive manner, consistent with the requirements of the open meeting law.
All right, so first on the agenda is continuation for the NOI for NJ Toomey, Lot 11 on Cropper Road. Home construction.
I'm Dennis Rice from McClure, representing Toomey. Toomey. At the last hearing, I presented two other alternatives to our initial design, and we reviewed those. Subsequently, or at the conclusion of that meeting, you had mentioned you wanted to see a third alternative uphill of the system. And we put that together with cost estimates on doing that. So you have the third alternative in front of you there. The cost, because the system, the way we originally had it designed, I provided cost estimates for, it's like $34,000 to go to pumps and controls, pump chamber, and additional soil testing. It cost about $17,000 more to do that. It would fit in there. The concern isn't the treatment from the leach area. The offset to wetlands in normal Title V is 50 feet. And studies have shown on a well-raised system and sand filter, the treatment happens in about 9 inches from the leach area. So it isn't the water quality from the leach area that should be the concern here, riverfront area. That's why on our initial design, kept the drive access to the outer portion of the riverfront area. Roof water from a house is considered clean, and a leach area designed properly function and will provide protection to the riverfront. The leach area, the nearest trench on the original design was 110 feet from the nearest high bank of the river on that side. As I mentioned, 50 feet is considered Title V standard to wetland stream other than a riverfront. That provides treatment. The 5-mile stream flows down into Dean Lake and then to Brooks Pond. Those ponds, the design distance for leach area from the pond is 50 feet because studies have concluded that 50 feet is adequate. So based on cost and everything, we still feel our first design was a system downhill on a house to allow gravity, and the well and the well up gradient, where the tank and the leach area has to be 100 feet from a well, and the tank has to be 50 feet. Put the leach area up gradient. The tank needs to be at the house, and then we have to be 50 feet from the tank to the well. That still puts the well down in that area. So,
So I looked at number 3 and I don't not like it. It's more expensive. I did some thinking, and now your alternative 1, your first alternative. I think this might actually be the best option. And I do believe as it sits, I don't think it's approvable yet, but I do think that we're going to avoid a pump for you, because your alternative here, by placing the system up in the northern portion, I see that house gets slid quite a bit further down into the riverfront area.
That's more destructive on the road walls because we have to push the road opening. We're using an existing byway for our original driveway design. And most of the driveway is outside of the 200-foot limits. I really think that's a hardship to require that.
Number
Number one,
really,
which no, alternative one had the driveway pushed up.
it's up and out of
And
it's
we'd have
completely
to
out.
take
of
road trees
zone.
down, and we'd have to take road wall down to implement alternative one.
So the Mass DEP does state that, so this is grandfathered, you are allowed to build here. But you need to try to meet the performance standards, to their maximum extent feasible, which includes maximum extent of the yards around the house. They need to be limited to what's necessary only for construction. Provision allows for a house, a driveway to enter, septic if applicable. Yards, garages, and other appurtenances would not actually qualify. I'm not so hard on that I'm gonna say you can't garage, but I really do think this alternative one is the best. You have a straight driveway out to the street. You're not taking out that much stone wall. There's still plenty here. I mean, my main concern is that we keep coming back with this trench system. And I think it was in the first meeting I mentioned the Presby and
Mention what?
a Presby system.
A proprietary system. I'm not a proponent of some of these proprietary systems. They allow you some leverage on offset the groundwater and stuff. But I found the performance of them longevity does not meet the longevity of a standard system. I don't think you can require us to have a proprietary. We meet Title V requirements to
Right,
the
but
nth degree.
with
We're
the,
sanitary protection.
but with the trench system, you've got reserves in between the trenches,
Yes,
which is making the system much wider than it would be if we had something.
we would have to have a
Presby.
reserve area if we don't do it between.
Right,
It's
but
actually
you don't have
narrow
to, but you wouldn't
restriction.
have to grade it out. You'd be grading it to the Presby system and you can slope a Presby system. And
We won't
it
have
has
to
a
have
lower,
a proprietary system.
and it has a lower profile
We want
and
separate
lower breakout.
we
And
want it
so
separate.
this
You can't
grading
have
you're showing
things that they
could be reduced quite a bit.
It costs more and it's registered name. It takes special product. We meet Title V requirements. You should really rethink that.
You meet Title V requirements, but by using a Presby, you reduce the amount of disturbed area in the riverfront area. And
You're gonna have
this-
you're gonna have a house lot there. It's 1 acre. You need a well, you need a system, you need a house. That's gonna envelope most of that lot to try and preserve. That's been an orchard forever. Okay, are you gonna put a restriction that they can only use a third of that lot? You can't fit it on there, number one. It's gonna be a house lot. Family's gonna wanna use their house lot. They're gonna want some lawn. They're gonna want a place for their children to play. Humans need habitat too. They will.
I get that, but the Wetland Protection Act,
And we feel we meet the intent of the original act and the grandfathering of an existing residential lot that was created before the act. And we've been 4 months already and you're coming up with a fifth option of other treatment. Have some compassion for the cost of the design of these things.
now with a Presby, you can avoid a 5-foot overdig as well. So you'd save on sand.
I don't like those. If the system fails in 5 years, you're gonna take the responsibility that you required a Presby system. I know Presby systems, I've designed them. I'm telling you, they can just fail in 10 years. And so your potential contamination of a river will be more if you have breakout on that system. These systems I know will last 25 to 50 years without breakout. What's the balance here? We're providing treatment. Uh, The grading of the land is temporary. It's gonna be a grass area, which has been a grass area for almost ever. And actually grass is a better treatment than wood. So I believe we are meeting the intent of the Rivers Protection Act. Um, I don't know where the middle ground here is.
Well, I don't think asking for a Presby to reduce the amount of grading and footprint that you'd be disturbing.
That's the only thing the initial, but you still have to disturb that area to grade for the house and grading around the house as well. It'll be a nicer building residential lot for Oakham, the way we've got it designed and what you're asking us to do.
I don't agree with that. The system you chose is eating up a lot more space than I believe a Presby would. That's all.
It's a grandfather lot under back.
I know that, but you
And
need
before
to try to
Presby
build on it. You
design-
need to try to meet maximum extent feasible. And
We feel we meet. I guess the term maximum feasible, it's, you're gonna push us into a corner, we say 20 feet. This. Is it? So is that the sentiment of the commission and entirety, or is there any other support?
what's that?
Is that the sentiment of the commission as its entirety,
I,
or is there any common sense here at all?
I'm not too familiar with the system that he's talking about.
Pardon me, I'm out of here.
I'm not too familiar with the system that he's talking about. I know he's more the expert than I am. I did like this. What is it called? Number one, alternative better than the first design. I'm in agreement with him for that.
And even with this, the way you have the trench, you don't have the silt fence right at the extent of your grading.
We need work area around building that. Temporary work. Alternative two pulls the system back, so I'm the same as on now. But that was a compromise in the middle. I would say we're still using the road wall opening of the existing stone wall, and it makes no sense to me without taking down road trees and more wall.
So this house.
And we pulled it back from another 15 feet. And it's a home lot, it's a house lot that people are gonna use. We would ask you to consider that.
I've designed Presbys and I've talked with people and you're the first one that's mentioned how prone they are to failure is all.
I've been doing these for over 50 years. I've seen conventional, I've seen these proprietary systems. I'm trained in it. I've seen the failures as well. Okay, and I've got documented failures. Once you start wavering and offset the groundwater, that's when you get into trouble. My own system.
Do you need to have you don't need these reserves between the trenches? Could you have them?
It makes it wider of the total future reserve. That is the most compact leach area. And here again, the studies are conclusive that the treatment is occurring right around that leach area. I've had my own trench system, so whether there's, I've lived in Oakham myself for 50 years. I designed that. I've never had breakout. I've never had failure of those systems. So I know the longevity. Okay. I know these other proprietary systems, the cold tanks have a shallow profile too. I, I don't know how many of those were replaced in 10 years. That is not acceptable lifespan for a system. We've had Presby's fail as well. So it, it's hard to explain, you know, what's really the best, you know. But in my mind, what we're proposing there is better than our. And for the longevity of that house lot, and not being there, having treatment of your effluent from the house. The act that regular says the maximum extent possible, but it also says based on the shape of the lot. And that you have the right to site a well, a house, and a leach area, and when those separation distances, we, the minimum, that is basically the minimum footprint area we need to build a house, well, and system on that lot. And I would, you know, I know it's gonna function all right for the Rivers Protection Act and the standards of the act as well.
So we're in agreement that this would be. That's the designs that were presented to us,
I think so.
and it meets. To the best of its ability.
More than that. I still think this limit of work could be pushed closer to the Toa slope. That must be.
Well,
Be
we could
15.
make that a condition.
You're right.
One of the conditions.
That is all temporary grading. That's gonna be grass and it should be cleared annually. I mean, it should be cleared. Once that system's constructed, those are the contours and property and landscape, that's green area. That'll function. Well.
I'm sorry, you had a question, I ignored you. Oh.
About. Which he is, they did then. Still haven't made the whatever, the tax and the, and that it was on, it's on you. But they haven't met all the tax. They still want to stick a house in there.
They can't, yeah, they do have the right to build on this lot and they can't actually fully get out of, they can't do anything out of the front area fully, so there is going to be work in the riverfront area. Actually, yeah, I think if we go this route on a request on plantings in the riverfront area, in this area.
What kind of plantings?
Riverfront area and
What kind of plantings?
shrubs. Wetland facultative shrubs, probably.
That's
maybe
that's
berries.
enough one, though.
High bush blueberry, perhaps.
Yeah.
Winter berry.
Developer wouldn't mind putting some plants, shrubs in the. It's that portion that we're grading in is uplands. We don't want to plant wetland species in our uplands. There is wetlands here, if you want more wetland species in the wetland. To plant them there or right along the border of the wetland. If you'd accept that alternative too, we would redesign the septic system final. Those were concepts, but it'll fit that footprint pretty much.
Number alternative one is what we were thinking.
What's that?
Alternative.
Alternative two, I'm encouraging you to look at.
It's just that number two puts just about everything in the riverfront area.
No,
Because-
well, not, it leaves the driveway opening the same, but it pulls the septic system back from the road. About the same amount as alternative one did.
Most supposed to be ag, but the septic is,
The driveway is fully out of it here, whereas here it's almost all. It's all in the river area.
I like this one better.
I would
because
think
that-
you'd want a straight driveway, especially for plowing purpose. That's not conservation.
So why do you like two better? Just so you can utilize the opening in the stone wall?
Yeah, if you're on the site, just to the left of that opening. There's a 48-inch oak tree that's gonna have to come down. That's caused a new road up for the sake of moving it that far, and we're on the outer band of the riverfront area where we get the driveway already. It's like most of its driveway is out of the 200-foot. There is some that's within 170 feet, I think, of the stream valley where it jumps out there. So it's a practical thing that the lot will be better with the driveway where we're shown it, in my opinion. But it has better sight distance for entering the roadway. That alternative one, we have to come in at a sharper angle to intersect the roadway. It's not as safe an entrance. It's common sense stuff here, which I think should be looked at.
Yeah. No, I wish you weren't so against the press because but if I saw one here, trench system. Fight against the press.
Takes a special variance with Title V to get that through DEP. And I mentioned my experience with them. I would not recommend that. I live in Oakham too. I have the interest in town and town. I've designed septic systems all over this town, and most are still in compliance and it's still working. If it was gonna be bad for the town, but I wouldn't want our town accepting a Presby here. That, I'm talking as a resident now, not the engineer.
It's just pretty obvious.
But the house is.
Well, right, and the driveway is. I still like one.
I do too.
I feel like one pushes everything as far as you can get it away from the wetland. I mean, it's unfortunate that the
If that's
driveway,
the decision of the commission, I guess we're gonna have to live with it. I don't think it's the right decision. You're talking about maximum compliance. The term maximum, I know, yes, you're right. It pushes it furthest away possible. It doesn't produce the best law for the town of Oakham, okay?
for the
If I
town
have
of
to
Oakham,
re-
for the
if I have
person
to
buying it.
redesign to that, I will, okay? But you guys mandated it, okay? Period. That's your decision.
Thought you could have saved, I thought you could have saved the Presby on fill and work and stuff, but. Do that, if you that for the trench system, I can live with this. What do you think?
I like one.
Talk. Conditions now or after?
Yeah.
I think we do want to see some enhancement plantings in the area that's being disturbed below beyond the toe of the slope. And shrubs. All they'll grow. Facultative. Facultative wetland. It does have high groundwater is high in the area. Soil testing. DEP does recommend that we put in a deed restriction that prevents future encroachment in the riverfront area. I don't care whether that be signs or bounds in the ground to the
And that's already in place. If they build them to an order of condition. Once they're built, they have to receive a plans.
Mhm.
If they do any work outside of that, they're already in the buffer zone and the riverfront, they automatically have to reapply. Why mandate bounds and stuff? It's understood. It's already under regulation.
really might not be to future homeowners. I've seen it a lot. It doesn't have to be bad. Those are kind of the
They
people.
don't know the regulation.
They have a GVW on the property. It's not like any other lots. Did you require that on other lots in town, even within the buffer zone? Require that on.
If I were to sell my house to you,
I mean, I have a house across from me built in the last several years that's encircled by wetlands, should be the same performance standards. Did you require bushes and bounds on that?
We have
I mean,
some,
just because there's riverfront area, I don't. You're going overboard in town right now, it's.
We have requested some wetland plants in some of the lots that have been done. So it's not something that's new or something that has never been done.
Right. I mean, there's disturbance of wetland, there's, you know, replacement of the wetlands, I understand. But it's already under regulations. You don't need that.
On completion, I'd like to see a red line as built showing the extent of the work with grading shown. Erosion control being in place till we see it and until we pave that red line, that might be a bad condition. Yeah,
Silt fence gonna have straw models. Is the silt fence gonna have straw models?
It has straw wattles. We're just showing straw wattles, notes of that. That's what's normally accepted now.
Right.
I think we call it out on 9-inch straw wattle or
One type
stuff protection control.
yeah, I
style filtration and a
Is this, well,
think so.
on the original system design, it shows that the
design.
Two tile that's in the wattle with the silt fence.
Oh, right, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, a silt fence on the wall.
those are just the draft alternatives. You look back at the original submittal, the complete design, 2 sheets and have the details and show it. Let me change it to all.
Have any other special conditions? Oh, just stockpiling, are you're probably planning on any stockpiled material, you're probably planning,
Temporarily, there's gonna be stocking piles out there.
but obviously you're not gonna stockpile it down here at the silt fence, huh?
But that's a reasonable. It can show the stockpile areas.
Well, is up out of all resource areas on. Go ahead.
You're all set?
Well, so
Okay.
we'll vote to- What do we call it?
Vote to approve alternative layout number 1. Lot 11 Crawford Road.
All in favor?
Thanks, all in favor.
Are you continuing the hearing or did you take a vote and closing the hearing? Pending the receipt of the,
We took a vote. And
on the issue of the order condition
Yes.
pending final design.
We took a vote on the plan and we did your conditions. I will complete the order of conditions hopefully this week and get it out to McClure
Yes.
or Mr. Toomey.
I will speak to her. As soon as satisfied.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
And I'm going to on top.
All right. Sitting for the hearing on. Crawford Road.
We're on,
Yeah.
the Boy Scouts for weed control. I'm missing 2 pieces of information for their order conditions. I need their number, file number. And I need to sign off on the date that we actually go. So, other than that, they are done.
So that'll be continued to next.
Lucy, did you need them here?
Pardon?
Did you need them here? Because I have him right here.
No,
Okay,
he's all set with
Okay,
me,
okay.
Unless he has his file number right there.
I just asked him, do you have your file number?
Okay. DEP file number, not one of the other numbers. Yeah.
That's what he thought. He thought it was already resolved, so he didn't get notice he had to come today.
No.
Okay,
I did not send him a
Okay.
notice because I hated to make.
He doesn't have it.
another time.
He does not have it. We're at home. It's at the camp.
He'll send it to
Okay.
me. He has my email.
Okay, just sending you.
So what, we just need a DEP number to add to our, what we've already done, and then they can begin their,
Right, good.
Okay.
I needed to have today's date that we're actually issuing it, even though we voted on it last.
okay. Understood.
Okay,
Continue to next month.
if I get those two pieces of information, I am capable of sending them out.
Okay.
As soon as I get them.
Okay.
He won't have to wait.
Okay, that's.
Okay, the next issue is 415 Hunt Road and 437 Hunt Road. And we did do site visits. I went out and looked at the sites. You two went out and looked at the site. We have from Mr. Coppolino. He issued a request for determination of applicability, which I just received. So I had no time to actually set up a hearing for tonight. Tonight was only for discussion. See what
Okay.
he has to say. To go further, we would need to set up a meeting for a hearing for him to satisfy the request for determination of applicability. And he's just concerned that the water is backing up to his property due to some interference along the driveway of his neighbor's house, which is downhill from his house. It's a very steep slope there. He had sent pictures of what he intended, and these pictures that if he goes for a hearing would be taken. Hearing. In conjunction with that, as suggested by DEP, I issued paperwork to Mr. and Mrs. Sheridan because of that very small piece of strip of land that separates the two properties, and they're right on the boundary line. And we did notice, and they are in the pictures too, that some loads of dirt along the boundary line with his neighbor have been placed, some, I guess, last year, some a little more this year. And his neighbor feels that that dirt is holding the water, not allowing it to go through over Mr. Sheridan's property. And going along the driveway on Mr. Sheridan's property is a wooded wetland.
Across the driveway. Yeah.
Driveway. Mr. Coppolino,
Yeah,
did I mention everything you had?
yeah, pretty good, but it's not a steep slope to his land. There's a big hill coming down from 3 houses up. But my backyard is pretty much level with his. His driveway is a foot higher than that swamp area. He put the mound of dirt in the middle of the swamp area. On his side, there's still a trench and like a small 6-foot pond that's there year round. Pipe was probably put in when he built the house because it was wetland. All wet. That pipe drains year round, okay? And the water on this side of the berm that he put can't get to that pipe, so it builds up and comes up onto my lawn, and it's about 50 to 100 feet up by 50 feet. And today you walk out there and you'll sink about 6 feet in my backyard, which has never been like that in the 25 years I lived there. It didn't start until he put the berm about a month later. Last fall, it started getting wet. Now this drainage is really, and you can see the water. There's about 6 foot from his berm to my land that's still just full of water. It gets about a foot deep, and it just leaches onto the land because it's all the same level. The hill is further, way further back. My septic is on that hill.
I
too.
remember when those properties were first being
was
built
probably
on
over-
back in the 1990s, 1990 actually.
Mhm.
That was very wetland all over.
Yeah.
So dividing it the way that the contractors did back in those days was very difficult. And I understood there was a pipe that goes right along the boundary line out to the road
You know,
that
But-
should be collecting the water that's coming from your
well,
property.
it's my perimeter drain that goes up.
Yeah. And it doesn't seem to be working quite properly.
No, my perimeter drain works fine. It flows every day of the year. That doesn't collect. That's
Is it
that's
big
smart.
enough?
Huh?
Is it a big enough drain to take all the water that it needs to take?
Yeah, it-
So that
Is
drain doesn't collect water coming through your backyard?
So
No,
if I can say something here. So I was there when the house was built
Mhm.
and Jackie Amadeo built the house. And he put a drain in between us to collect that water that would come to that corner. So there's a surface drain along the boundary line. That surface drain is not working correctly. And that's,
unfortunately,
and well, it's been not working for,
but that's like 50 to 100 feet further down.
So-
from where he put the
but
swamp.
that's the low part. That's actually where the water
So-
runs to,
You think the drain is not working properly?
not working.
My guess would be since, and I don't know because I haven't talked to you guys about it. But it seems like there are a lot of bushes and trees around.
There is.
And judging from what happened to my drain, they actually grew inside the drains, clogged them all up, and I ended up with 2 feet of water in my cellar. So I know, and it took 50 years to do that, and I'm looking at the amount of time that you've had all this water coming through your two properties. Have you checked your drains? Have you cleaned them out?
We have cleaned it for 3 years.
Have you gone through to see whether you have all the roots from all those bushes that are around them?
I clean them every 3 years. But
Because
that
that's,
drain- that
that's a
drain-
long
that
drain, that's a very long drain.
Drain that property, that's way up further where you put that is always wet, that stays wet, where the drain is, it's usually dry there.
So
it would
what-
flow down there.
So
If that drain
there's,
was open, it wouldn't take, the water can't get to it.
there's a white pine that was put there. And when that was put there, it actually was put in the swale that
Yes.
blocks the water
I remember
out from
seeing that,
running down
yeah.
towards that surface drain. So there's a surface drain right there at the top. I don't know if it's I think it's maybe a 4-inch pipe, maybe a 6.
It's a
But
4-inch pipe,
Could be a
it just goes to like a French drain, it just goes to the stones, it was never hooked into the pipe, we dug it up. That won't drain that water,
It
there's no, right
goes-
now, there's no water where that drain is, it's all up further. There's no water. up
My
in that drain.
impression when I saw it was that there needs some work to be done on drains.
If that
in-
round-
in
if
that
round
area.
dirt was not there, all that water would drain under the culvert like it's been for the last 25 years. I've never had water in my backyard like that.
that was not a wet spot. We used to mow over there and it's gotten increasingly wetter as that tree has grown and the root ball has gotten bigger and it's holding that water back.
That's why I
So
think
it's
that
getting
was my
wetter.
concern is that it's the roots that are causing a lot of the problems that we've got to find some way to clean them out and fix them or put in new drains. That's what I took away from it when
Yeah.
I went. I don't know what you two thought.
But you'd have to put drains way up on his property where
So
the water is. There's no water where the drain is. I can show you on the. picture.
because the drain actually will slowly, it will take care of it, but it's working really, really slow. If there's water there within a day or two, it's gone, because it does go down the drain. So
No,
there's a
it's-
surface drain with perforated pipe, and then it connects into the other and goes across the street.
It doesn't connect to it.
Perforated
It just goes into stones.
It's there where the house is built.
And they made you redo it.
So that,
Even if you,
so that
even
drain
if you
you
take
just said doesn't.
the drain where he's talking,
So if it goes nowhere,
water is 75
Why is
feet up
it-
further.
Drain doesn't go anywhere. How do you know it's functioning? If you don't see water going anywhere, if it's just sitting at the top of the drain.
No, it
There's
was
some-
down about 4 feet to just crush stones and it's supposed to leach into another pipe. I didn't put it in. We just, when we dug up the pipe to check it, we saw that pipe. But that's nowhere near where this water is. There's no water on that pipe right now. It's all further up.
So the water was back in that back corner. And Mr. Coppolino dug a trench, all the water ran forward. And it ended up being where it was supposed to have gone initially, is in that drain area. So, and it was slow. It's definitely slow. It's clogged. I don't know if it's clogged on the surface or if it's clogged down through with roots. Those trees have been there for 35 years. So they very well could have grown roots into those perfect.
Then why did it only fill up when you put that? Can you legally fill in a wetland that's with the dirt like that, that mound?
So my thought is that whether or not the drain is doing what it's supposed to or isn't, and we can't actually determine for ourselves, the commission, a professional would have to delineate the nearby wetland. The dirt berm, and again, I can't say how much of it, but if this is indeed a bordering vegetated wetland, then 100 foot extended from the boundaries of that is considered buffer zone. And the placement of this dirt berm within the buffer zone is for sure altering the hydrology of the area, the natural flow, which, because all of this water, I would imagine is not naturally, I know the swale was built, but was at one time reaching the swale and going under your drive into the wetland. And I don't know, I can't say whether the fill that was placed is actually filling a wetland, but it does seem to me like it is work in the buffer zone, and it is probably altering the hydrology of the area.
I think that's the purpose. I think that's why it was.
So really, I think we would need to see a professional to delineate we'd have to know where the boundaries are of that wetland, so we can determine how much fill was placed in the buffer zone. And we don't have jurisdiction outside the buffer zone, but any work that was done within that buffer zone may need to be restored back to its natural state. Those are my thoughts.
But also, I think that you need a professional engineer opinion about what's going on here.
There's a lot that we can't see
Right.
and determine for ourselves. The commission was.
I mean, we can't sit here and tell you, you did this, you need to do that. You know, that's not what we do. It looks to me, I mean, obviously, there's a conflict. I think you need some type of engineering to figure out what's actually going on.
All it takes is to open that berm back up and all that water will drain down the pipe where it's been 5 years.
Right.
It never started till that was there.
So I
It had
think
nothing to
that,
do with that drain. Can I show you that picture? Explain that picture to you.
Yeah, sure.
so you know where the drain is. I mean,
I'm gonna show you what the drain is. Drain has nothing to do with this.
you think the drain is put in there?
Yeah, okay, the drain is way over here. Okay. This is the berm when you put it in. Okay, this thing here. This is his property. This is my property line. Here.
Good morning.
That's like that right there. It is a property line right there, okay? You have all this land, all soak away that was going, this is level with that. He puts this thing here. Okay? What's it here? The culvert, you got a pipe going across the driveway right here. Right there, then. Okay, the pipe goes across to that brook. Culvert was here, he filled this in. Now I got all this water from here to here. It goes all the way up to here on all the way over to here. The sink about 6 inches right here. You know, it's like all the water. Never been a problem. All this water is flowing down.
Where's the drain we're talking about?
Drain, okay, the drain is way down out here. As you can see, there isn't even any water there.
So this goes downhill this way.
Yeah.
So if that drain isn't working, then obviously it's gonna get wet.
Oh, how come the water isn't down to the drains?
See how far the water down there, but
Well, it's not, right now, if you go down here, it's dry, this is perfectly dry right down here. This water's up here. This water's supposed to go across, it's supposed to go across, like it's, always been going across. Over here, way up here, you can't see this, there's like a swamp.
That was not,
It goes under the driveway.
it should go under it.
Yeah,
Right.
it goes under the culvert right here, the driveway's a foot higher than the ground. And this is flat.
so where is the water flooding? Can you come and show us on the picture where the water is flooding?
So the water is coming through. That water never came through before. You know, we used to maintain that area.
We maintain our water.
We
We
maintain,
don't feel like we have to maintain Papolino's water.
Not water backing up because you got this thing here. That was just all, it flowed.
so when there was water down in that back corner, Mr. Coppolino dug a trench along the boundary line. All that water rushed forward to that spot. Now it can't go uphill, so it's gonna be downhill from there. And it went to the drain, which is what Jackie Amadeo had planned it to be originally.
That trench is still there. He fills it with horse crap right there.
I didn't put all.
Oh, okay. It's just that the purpose of this is whether the area depicted on the
Right, I
plan or
checked that out.
what
that
the
one.
work is.
Yeah.
And I can't really determine, because if it's isolated, then there is no buffer zone, and it's
Right.
just not our jurisdiction.
Right,
Mass Mapper does show hydraulic connection at the southern portion of that wetland. And we check it out. Way down that way, so. So it may be bordering vegetated wetland, but I can't make that determination. But if it is, then it appears as though there is work in the buffer zone. So it's approval from the commission.
So if his drain had failed and now it's flooding me, what is my protection against that?
The drain is downhill from you.
I don't honestly know.
Okay,
And the drain is on my property.
the drain is on this property. That's not working.
And if the drain is downhill from him, that water's gonna be flowing through it. You just said that the drain goes downhill.
I mean, it's down from the water, it's down, it's way down, when there's no water there. The water will come down there, when this water builds up high enough, it's gonna rush down, and there'll be a foot of water there, yeah. But right now, the reason the whole backyard is wet is because of that berm.
So
So that's, you can just restrict the flow of someone's water like that? So I can go out in front of my house and plug up the drain and.
no, I don't think you can. I just it's just whether or not it's a conservation commission issue. Whether if that work was done within the 100-foot buffer zone of the nearby wetland, then I would say it was work done.
Well, you already said across the street is wetland.
Right, but
Well,
it's not
50
actually,
feet.
but it's not mapped. We need to see it on a plan, by a professional.
Professional delineator, in order for us to call it.
Because we can't do that ourselves.
Yeah.
And it definitely looks like it may be,
Isn't there a penalty for filling in wetland?
yes, but I don't know whether it's, so I can't say whether it is actually a wetland that was filled. It seems like a drainage area to me, so. So as far as directly filling a wetland, it doesn't seem like that's the case, but it does seem like work in the buffer zone. So. Exactly what Brad would take with that, but.
And as far as blocking flows of water onto properties, I think that's not a conservation issue. That's more of a civil issue. We can't tell you guys what to do.
all we could really do suggest is find somebody that. knows
Yeah,
all of
so-
it, that would come out and take a look at it, but that would be up to the homeowners. That's
Hydrologist,
not up to us.
have the area delineated,
Yeah.
and then we could make determinations.
And if the drain is such an issue, maybe have that same engineer or whatever dig it up and confirm.
It's the working order. Early, you gotta come out and look at it.
No, I hear you, I'm just
It's-
trying to cover all. Trying to be fair.
But we have also had a tremendous amount of.
It's just.
Time, month of May that we've had. If we go back into the drought, there shouldn't be a problem.
You dug a ditch through that mound, it would all be drained in a month. Yeah, I'll talk about back where it was.
But, I did send those pictures to DEP. They had a chance to look at them and they couldn't make a determination exactly what they thought it was either. They thought there was a possibility that was in bordering vegetated wetland, but
The
it's
solution to
a
this
drainage area, so it's hard to tell.
is to repair the drain. I mean, it was put in there originally to take care of that water. Yeah, and it did.
It's nowhere near that,
But something,
and you covered it.
it's gotta be some kind of drainage put that will satisfy everybody and take in the water and bring it
I'll
up.
be
to the
draining
road.
all on his side. Like, why
So
should
the
I-
drain was put there and it ran across the street and it dumped over there. That's where it went. I was there when the house was built.
Right, it did go across the street, it still does go
It
across
still
the
does.
street, does it not?
But it was, that was my perimeter drain for my house, not.
I think it was all tied together. I don't know. I don't know how Jack did it.
And you don't have any plans,
I don't have any plans.
building the house, that anything was put in?
I don't know.
Because those were the very, very early days of having a conservation commission in
Yep.
town. And there were people that were just joining conservation at that time and they were just learning.
Yeah. And I don't know, there probably was no plan originally when Jack did that.
Yeah.
They'll say if he digs a ditch through that mound, all that water will drain right, like it's been, it's just backing up.
No,
Yeah.
I hear you. I don't think we have enough evidence without the wetland being delineated and actually determined to be bordering. It needs to be bordered vegetated wetland, so the wetland needs to border a channel, a pond, some kind of body of water. And then it has 100-foot buffer zone. And if it is indeed a bordering vegetated wetland and it has that buffer zone, then it looks like the word.
So who's gonna determine that?
I think we have to recommend you find an engineer or professional wetland scientist to.
You guys don't know what wetlands are?
No, we do. We just, as the town, the Conservation Commission, town employees, we can't do that ourselves. It needs to be a third party.
And then we can take it from there.
So I think we could continue it for a little more evidence. I'm not saying no or yes. I want to make a determination. I just,
We don't have.
with lack of evidence.
And to do that, we need to hold a hearing. This was a discussion that we did not hold a hearing. We need to hold a hearing to come up with what our determination.
Okay, so there was no chance of a determination tonight anyway. This was just informational.
Yeah.
So in the time between now and the next meeting, maybe,
I sent out the paperwork as DEP instructed that I send them out.
I don't know how that works. I know the wetland is on your land, but I'm telling you
Yeah.
that you kind of need to hire somebody to determine that it is bordering vegetated wetland, and so I don't actually know how that works. Would it be, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to proceed really. But we can't make a determination. Yeah.
For them to work that out.
Yes, That's kind of,
Okay.
So we should continue this for next month and then
We'll do
Okay,
it
so
here.
we're gonna call
I'll
between the-
advertise it in the paper, and we'll hold the regular hearing rather than just discuss the issue for tonight.
was this sort of discussing this and the enforcement order? I see. it.
I asked him to come to the meeting at the date of his enforcement for June third, which is today. And so we could hear both sides.
Okay, so this one is just a discussion.
Mhm.
Okay. And I'm sorry, both parties, I wish we could make a determination one way or the other. But as this is just a hearing, not a
Not a
hearing, this is
hearing.
this is just a discussion,
making any determination. So. Continue for hearing next month.
First
or
Tuesday.
Tuesday in July.
I guess I would recommend you could have that same, whoever you may find, determine whether this area that you think he filled is wetland or not. He should be able to determine that with soil borings and the, wetland vegetation or lack of.
It looks like July 1st. It's the first Tuesday.
I'm on vacation, so I'll have one of me. I won't be here. Not with that.
Thank you and all of you.
So
We'll
I
keep
think we,
as we keep.
we did discuss this before. Mr. Coppolino actually had piled dirt on our property, on the front of the property, to keep the water off of his that was running in towards the pond. So,
That is unfortunately definitely not in our
That's
jurisdiction.
right, it's definitely civil,
So,
but it's, I don't know, I don't see there's a lot of difference.
Okay,
I understand.
we'll keep on it.
Okay,
Thank you so much for coming in, everybody.
thank you for your time. Sorry this had to happen.
Oh.
All right. Okay, on to the last best proposal.
All right, so I think that this had come up, Mr. Chairman, because, Zach had been receiving some emails from folks. And I suggested that, really the only way that, any of that can be handled is is in an open meeting.
Right.
I don't know that there's anything before this board, but just so that the community doesn't think that emails are going into some void where nobody is hearing them or seeing them, that it's worthwhile to just put it on the agenda and let people know they have been received. But as we've seen, my 2 cents, I guess, is what this board is limited to, right, is there an issue within the Wetlands Act? And there is, then we can act, and it's not every problem that this commission can solve
Right.
or act upon. But those that are within the wetlands, if there's something and there's a proposal, then we should, and we can and should act at that point.
And up until now, up to this point, we have no proposals from their company. Back in October, we did get
An ANRAD, redeed notice of
Two.
resource area delineation. We were just confirming the, wetland boundaries on site. So we walked every single inch of wetland. Made sure we were in agreement that it was flagged correctly.
And I think at that point, I was away. I did not walk it. I believe the 2 of you walked it.
Yep.
And I think even at that point, when it was, I'm not even sure that the commission was aware, nor did we with any reason to be aware of what the project may turn into.
No,
It was just, we're the property owner, and here's the form that is on the DEP website. And can you confirm what they are?
I think the name on the application said Moraga Storage. I actually thought it was for storage units.
We thought it
Uh,
was-
I don't know. Storage,
And
something,
there was this
Individual storage.
company coming with vehicles,
correct.
Well, they
not
literally,
with battery.
Yeah,
they sent me a certified letter saying,
That was the original proposal.
yeah,
Yeah.
they literally said that. That's why we talked about it.
So, I mean, at some point in the future, whoever owns the property or gets leased to and is going to build something, there'll be an actual proposal that structure A is going to go here. And at that point, they'll have to file again with us to say, hey, come and check it out. This is what there is. And then we can go through there with a fine tooth comb and see what's what. And while I understand the sentiment that, is clear from some members of the community and expressed in the email correspondence, I would just suggest that regardless of what entity it is, whether it's an Oakham citizen or a foreign corporation that comes before the board, that entity or individual who comes before the board has a right to come before a neutral board that's formed no opinions, hasn't expressed a political opinion one way or another about whether this is good or not good. And so until such time as something is put before us, that's the position that I suggest that the board should take. And when things come before us, we'll act accordingly.
sorry.
I'm seeking recognition to speak.
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Matthew Broderick. I live at 1871 North Brookfield Road. I've been a resident of town since about 1992. I'm here in opposition of the battery park. That's my reason for being here. I just want to make that clear, and I'm representing myself in that regard. First of all, I want to thank you all for serving the town. I know it's a tough job, you do. And I know with issues like this in particular, it can get pretty difficult. We certainly had a difficult hour
Don't make many.
before this. Exactly. It's a thankless job. So I want to thank you. I have a couple of questions and I have a request in regards to the battery park. But I just wanted to start out by saying that my stance is to try to be helpful to this commission and obviously to the town as well. And apologies in advance if any of my questions, are not appreciated. But let me get started. So the my understanding is that a Form 4B, I think, the order of area resource determination.
Yeah, the ANRAD.
Well, that's actually the response to the ANRAD, right? The ANRAD is something, isn't that something that they file
They filed
for a
it.
determination? Okay, so I actually haven't seen that document, but I did see the order that was signed by 3 members of the commission. I think it was on December 3rd of 2024.
Yep.
And how I came to know that was actually from the petition that this company Moraga has filed with the Energy Siting Board. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but you mentioned earlier that when you were first brought into this matter, you weren't aware necessarily of the details of the proposal, of the project, of the plan, and everything. The 50 some odd page petition that is now accessible to the public by the Energy Siting Board actually goes into quite a bit of detail. Still not enough in my opinion, and there's still a lot of hidden stones, I think, that need to be overturned in that, but there is a lot of detail now that the public should be aware of now about the actual intent. My understanding is that the ANRAD serves 2 potential purposes. by the applicant. And I was just curious as if you could tell me which one they were sort of filing that with you under. The first one being that it is a request for delineation of vegetation, vegetated wetlands areas on the property. And then the second is for a simplified process of uh, approving something without a plan at the time of the filing. So I was just wondering if, what was your understanding at the time you received the ANRAD? Was it to delineate the vegetation areas, or was it for the second reason?
My understanding is that
For the delineation.
it was to confirm the
It
delineation.
was, okay.
Yeah.
So the order that you signed then in December was basically, as I could understand it, I just want to verify with you, was to basically confirm that the plans that they submitted to you that showed the vegetated areas, the buffer zones, et cetera, was accurate to the best of your knowledge. And
We met with the wetland scientist on the
Yep.
site. We walked every,
was that Mr. Bergeron,
I can't remember.
I don't remember his name.
Mepsilon? the
It was
company?
Epsilon.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
We met with him, we walked
yep,
all of his delineations on the whole
Okay.
site. We made recommendations to include spots,
okay,
to have him research more spots.
okay,
And then he came back to us with his revised
okay,
delineation,
gotcha.
and that's all that we approved.
Okay, so again, the reason for my questions is I'm not trying to be critical. I'm not trying to be difficult. What I am trying to do though is I'm hopeful that maybe we can as a community have some type of improved response to, I think, for no lack of a better term, the assault that we're under right now from from these companies. And what I mean by that is that the signed order, and I know it's only the delineation, it's not, it's not the final conditions or anything like that. But that signed order is now appearing in their documentation that they're bringing to the state board. And it's also appearing in their stormwater mitigation plan, which is, I think, like a 90 or 161 page document of very detailed engineering specs. And they're quoting the Oakham Conservation Committee in a way that I think looks supportive of their plan, which you say to this day you haven't even seen yet. So what let me get to my request. First of all, my request right now would be, given that there is that signed order, would you be amenable to doing another site visit for monitoring purposes of the property? My concern in particular is that it's a 42 acre plot of land and 19 acres. Well, I think you have the authority to do monitoring visits. And I think that again, if it was still in process with an ANRAD, maybe you might not have the authority, but I think since you signed the order of again, just my opinion, but I think since there's an order signed and they're actually using that order as to basically forward this plan, which again, they have not shared any of this with you, but they're already getting way ahead of your skis with that order. So for that reason, and maybe this isn't your concern and you need somebody from the public to make this concern to you. My concern is that there may be work going on or disturbance of the land going on that property. It's 42 acres of land with a 19 acre, project site carve out. I don't know, maybe nothing's happened, on that property. But I think from a conservation standpoint, it's at least worth a look to walk around and just make sure that there's no disturbance to that property happening before you guys issue your conditions. That's my request. So I'll, leave it to you to deliberate.
set any conditions until something.
I understand
comes
that.
To us.
I understand that this is monitoring though of the delineation approval that you already made, because let's face it, I mean, if,
So the allegation, as I understand it, is that prior to any building permits, et cetera, going on, he's saying he believes that there's work going on in the site. And so,
which would be illegal at this point,
of course,
Yeah.
there's no permits been pulled, no nothing.
right?
So I think the only thing, is there work, so is the allegation that work's going on within the wetland? If it's,
Yes,
okay, so if that's it, all we can do is we can ask the property owner, say that we received an allegation that work has commenced pre any of this, and that we're asking, we don't have the authority to enter on anyone's property,
Right.
right,
but we can ask.
I understand.
And if they say, come on in and look around, then we can go and look around. That's all we can do. We can't force ourselves in. There's,
I appreciate,
that's all we could do.
I appreciate that. And again, work being done, could mean a lot of different things. I think it's just from a conservation standpoint, if you, had the opportunity to monitor the site and found any disturbance of the land, any trees cut, anything like that, in the buffer zones, I think it's worth at least, for the town's sake, a look. And that's my request, if you guys, agree with it and would be willing to pursue that. Um, my other, question is, given the fact that, again, even as of tonight, this commission still feels like they weren't provided with much information about the forecasted project at the time you were asked to get involved. And since that time, I don't know, I mean, maybe this is a little bit of a stretch, but I think they did know exactly what the project was intended at the time that they approached you. And when I look at the detail that is now available, I don't think this is something they just hatched after they got your delineation. And I think
I
that,
don't think that from my perspective, it doesn't matter to me.
well,
I'll be honest with you.
here's,
They came before the board and said, this is the lot of land. Let us know if you agree that these are
okay,
the current wetlands, yay or nay, and we did that. And that's within their right to do. They don't have to show every card that they have.
they do not, but they do have to do one thing. They have to certify that the ANRAD itself is an appropriate process to pursue and not do a notice of intent.
Correct.
And did they do that? Did they check off every single box under letter D? That basically said that no work, and it's a long list of things they have to check out on the ANRAD. I haven't seen it, so I don't know. You guys might be able to look at that. But if they certified to you at the time that this met the requirements for an ANRAD process and not an NOI, then that's
That
deceptive.
would be a problem.
That's
when they come
deceptive.
before the board again.
And it's a defective application. And if you find that to be true, what I would request of the board, the commission at this point would be to rescind the order. And that will serve to really kind of screw up a lot of what they've now done with your order and their other documentation. They'll have to pull all that back. Now, again, I know that's not, the real, main event, as far as you guys are concerned. It's once you guys get the notice of intent and you actually have to, really do the detailed look and then order the conditions. I know that's the main event. However, I still think that, if the perception, not more than perception, if the belief out there is that these are predatory, deceptive characters that we're dealing with, I think that they should be dealt with at every step of the process harshly.
It's just. Fair enough. I just asked it here and to direct the audience that it's not about name calling. We're not gonna engage in that. It's fine that people have their opinions, but that someday they may come before us and we're just gonna keep the decorum what it is. I'd ask that to the chair.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
I see.
Yeah, I have, but so are they not supposed to be in there working at all? Cause I live at 360 Colbert Road. They were in for a week cutting trees. All down the road. Chipping brush into my yard. So I know they were in there.
So I think-
8 o'clock at night on a Saturday night.
So I think that, you know, we've now had two citizens come before us and say, hey, they're doing this. We don't know, you know, I don't know without having a map in front of me, whether that's a part of either a wetland or a buffer to a wetland.
Right.
And
Well,
so,
I know there's, you know, on the map, there's a brook running on each side of my property.
Yeah,
And they
Yeah.
shipped it right into it pretty much.
well,
So
I think the appropriate response is that a letter from this board goes to the owner saying, we've had these concerns that there's there's activities going on that may be going on in a wetland or around a wetland. And we'd ask for permission to enter, and you're happy to join us as we do so.
Trying to get a response.
Well, may I also suggest if they refuse a monitoring visit, that be grounds for rescinding the order?
they'll say they can go there.
Board of Select meeting, because I watch online, I heard Phil in the audience saying that he, in the special permit, he has the right to go down there.
Whenever they want.
So the planning board, I don't know, that we're not the planning board.
Right.
So if the planning boards may have that right,
Why could the
whatever,
planning board do it and you couldn't?
we're not the planning board.
Yeah, I think
So-
that if you address it, if there is, I think you said it would be great.
I think that's all we can do. We don't have the authority to enter your land. Or anybody else's land. We can do it. If they say no, the answer is no, then our recourse is if we are certain or there's a good faith basis to believe, then if the town wants to hire an attorney to get us an order to enter the property, we can do that. But those are our options.
I have a question about the delineation. So the maps that are in the proposal with the state, the delineation lines seem to be incomplete. So there's, the only delineated the north and eastern boundaries and then drew a straight line from the northwestern boundary to the southeastern boundary without making the true western borders.
So that may be, I can't speak as to why, but perhaps they have no desire to use that at all. And so if they're just saying there'll never be anything that's gonna happen on the back 20 acres, why bother delineating it? We're only gonna do something on the front acre. I don't know.
Do you have the map right? Are you looking at them?
I was gonna say,
I don't have the map. I have an email from someone
got
from the Heritage Club that looked at it when I read the proposal on the first to the state and about the vernal pools. And I know we have vernal pool obligated creatures in our property and we're right next door. So I reached out to him and he looked at the maps and the proposal and we looked at aerial images and said there are areas of interest that are, he said that they're worth investigating further and that the information should be brought to the Conservation Commission. And I did forward the emails when I got them, but I never heard anything back.
I responded to you.
Oh, okay, I didn't see it.
I was gonna, excuse me, also address that. I know there's a lot of people trying to get in touch with you guys. Is it standard practice to not respond, or how should we go about getting a response? This is from many, many people. I personally haven't, but they want an answer and you guys come and have this meeting and we're concerned about the outreach. Should we be telling other people, like, should we say, use the form? I know, Lucy, I saw a form for you, like, how does communication work?
Email work very well.
So the reason that you can't is open meeting laws. So if you send an email and then expect to get something from us, we can't meet outside of this. So the good folks at Morgan or whatever their company name, those folks don't have to worry that the three of us are somehow debating their future and their investment here. And you don't have to worry. We're not talking whether it's, you know, some project that you've got. We're not going to talk about that amongst ourselves. We'll talk about it here in front of you. And so it does take time. It's not something that it's like an email back and forth. That, hey, I got a question and you're gonna get a response to it. We do receive them, through that, and then that's what prompted me to say, guys, we've got a bunch of these emails. And this needs to go on an open meeting so that
Yeah,
the folks know that it's not just going into a dead zone, but there's nothing for us to do. There's no action for us to take, at this point. But we've heard now complaints that, warrant at this point just a letter, unfortunately, but.
I'm just curious, this is the map on their proposal from Epsilon. Did you walk that entire perimeter? Including that? Including back here?
Yeah, that was one of the car, there was cars all
In the wetland?
more or less, yeah.
Is that an issue?
Put car, come time for the notice of intent, we plan to have them,
So even like,
clean out all the wetland, because we saw old car parts, batteries,
A lot of that stuff's on DEP or on DCR property. And bulldozed over the boundary wall.
oh,
I gotta tell you, if that was Blue Hills or someplace else that the DCR was in charge of,
Mhm.
somebody would be down there picking it up off the ground tomorrow. So the idea that this is all brand new, that stuff's been over the boundary wall since I've lived in town.
that's how close they're going. Within the perimeter of the.
John Scannell knows that stuff's down there. John Scannell's never been down there. He's in charge of watershed protection. You can usually catch him, cutting a ribbon somewhere up at the Quabbin or, dedicating some kind of fishery or something. I'm hoping he can come down if we get this battery dumped, he can come down and cut the ribbon for that. Because the DCR has been completely useless. The idea that you have no enforcement over the stuff that's been pushed over that wall. And the DCR just is like, well, we really don't know what's going on down there.
I can't speak to what the good folks at the DCR are or not up to.
Well, they're not up to any.
they're not doing their job.
Well,
Oh.
yes.
Hi, Michelle Bertrand, 472. Mark Marabella. Couldn't answer if you wanted. Just read. Asking that the planning board and the conservation commission file a complaint against the current owner stating past wetlands fill, improper site closure, abandonment, and send a formal request to the permits and enforcement section of the Army Corps. Asking for a site investigation and number one, require a judicial determination from the corps in advance of the application from Moraga to them. That will tell the corps and us if there is a federal oversight and compliance for the battery truck. It opens up section 404 criteria, appendix C historical, PSA section 401, WQC, all in our favor, which I'm sorry, I don't know. It would force the corps to look at the site prior to EFSB, the siting board, making a decision. It may bring the US EPA, US FWS, and the Mass DEP in advance of the corp's application. This will send a message to the siting board to deny without prejudice if the feds take over the site. He strongly urges the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board, Dr. Marabella's assistants, to meet and put together a formal. This might be what we need either way, it's jurisdictional or not. We can force efforts towards the agencies that can stop it. We will need to provide them with the site photos, overlays with historic pictures of cars and wetlands, plot plan for USGS, quadrangle address
and any other site information to get them to open a file. The ESA 2017 was done with all the vehicles on sites. Because the extremely thorough 2019 survey done for the 7th solar application includes wetland delineation overlaid on the aerial photo showing all the. I have project manager would be Abigail Thrill from the US Army Force.
I just have a question, like if you had permission to be on the property and you observe potential violations to the Wetlands Protection Act, don't you have an obligation to protect the citizens of this town if there are batteries, if there are potentially vehicles that are leaking chemicals into our water system? Isn't that enough to require a mitigation of some kind to clean it up by the current property owner, Zoval, who lives in Florida? It's still their property. You witnessed it. So shouldn't it be cleaned up, not waiting 6 months, a year, 2 years from now, if you know that there's something going on right now that's potentially even in a buffer area?
So yeah, anything I think anything in a wetland or a buffer area, if there's a violation, then there are things that the board can do they can be penalties, they could be orders of cleanup there. All of that is within our,
So I would ask that that be done if you have personal knowledge of it.
so I don't, but.
I mean, I heard there was a walk that went all around there and I believe there are vehicles in the area that you say you walked, so. Which,
wasn't there. They were.
And
Did you see stuff?
so, I mean, I think that can be a part of our letter as well, just saying on our previous visit, upon reflection, there were items that, have caused us concern and we'd like to revisit that. So I think we add that. And then to, this young lady over here, our legal budget is 0. So,
But filing a written complaint.
So can I just mention that the legal budget is definitely an issue for the entire town?
Yep.
And it's something I'd like to actually bring up at town meeting to address. But if you need some type of emergency funds, for unforeseen purposes, there is a finance committee reserve fund that can be tapped for that. So if you guys feel like you need to hire somebody like urgently for some reason, either legally or, technically, professionally, whatever, that might be an avenue you could get some quick, resources from.
so that is one that I had on my mind, which is that, as you know, as you've seen, we go out and kind of based on our different life experiences and life, fields, go out and do the best we can to see what is a wetland, what is not a wetland. And then apply, these laws so they, these folks have a lot more experience in the area of trying to pick out what a wetland is and what's not, and they take me on these sites. My background's more in the law, so I try to we all bring different, skill sets, to that. And I've mentioned this at, I think, many of the prior meetings about that there are, individuals that you can retain that will say, this is the wetland, this is what it is, and then those individuals make recommendations to the board. And I've worked with them in my law practice, in other towns and, in bigger towns and bigger cities where you have, a 12-person board and they're all citizens who have no idea what a wetland is. And he comes in and tells you, this is the wetland and this is the impact that I think. We still ultimately make the decisions. We still, but it's based on at least an expert's opinion of that. But that's something, again, that the town would have to foot that budget. And if a project like this, where I think it's safe to say, given that the environmental impact, it's all new stuff that's come to the Commonwealth. It's it's a large scale project. That it would be worthwhile to get that expert opinion who then tells us, this is what it is. So I'd be all, I've been for that before even this came on because, I feel a little foolish, walking out and saying, oh yeah, this looks a little wet. And I got my little trainings that I've done with these guys that say, oh yeah, that leaf is indicative of wetlands and sure, this is a wetland. And we do the best that we can, but, so I'll leave it at that. That I think it's worthwhile to explore that.
So could I ask that conservation meet with the planning board at least to discuss this? Of the battery park? I know the planning board has had, in the past, they've had other people. I guess when they were decommissioning it, not decommissioning it, but, they did. That, which would also help two people as parties of field. But could I ask that a meeting between the two?
You can ask anything.
Well, I know, but could it possibly, because I mean, I don't think you're gonna write this, file a complaint with the Army Corps of Engineers, but, I know Bill is planning on whoever did the sighting last time. But
And so I think this is great stuff to email to.
saying possibly,
They could, and I think that's a fine email to maybe send to the board and to the planning board. I don't know how that works out, but it's an idea and it's not an idea.
email to both of you,
I could,
or
you've asked us, so we know.
go to planning
You
board.
can go to the planning board and then we can figure out if it's appropriate or not appropriate and go from there.
They're meeting on non-compliance of Moriga right now tonight.
That's probably a more exciting place to be, I'll be honest with you.
Well, we
I don't
right
wanna
now,
sell the company, to be sure.
we're kind of stuck here.
I have.
And again,
Steve wants a 366 East Hill. Michelle Bertrand just mentioned a gentleman by the name of Mark Mirabella. He has he's a retired U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And he has extensive experience in environmental permitting. He's posted 2 public comments on the EFSB website. He told them all the reasons why this should never go through. And in his first one, he listed all his qualifications to comment on this. Is the board amenable to working with Mark President, who is an expert in this area?
so
We
this,
invited him here tonight, but he wasn't able to come.
But I would urge the board to avail themselves of this man's expertise.
No, absolutely.
And anyone who hasn't read his public comments, go on the EFCS
Read them.
and read his 2 public comments.
Excellent. You'll get an education.
No, I've seen his writing. He's very good. It's very good. Well, like I said, that's why I did invite him here tonight, but wasn't able to come.
I think, Mr. Chair, there was some.
Thank you, Barbara Pucci, 259 East Hill Road East. Would you kindly, as the board, as we wrap up here, summarize the steps you're gonna take based on all these worthwhile suggestions? Thank you.
If I could just add one other thing, which might help you to summarize. In the DEP's technical comments, were those reviewed prior to signing the ANRAD in December? That are on the DEP's website that recommend that the commission use their ability to consider third-party review. They recommend the commission field verify the wetland boundaries. They even suggested that their maps were not complete based upon their review. Had you reviewed the DEP's technical comments? So, but you opted not to engage a third party. You just took their submission of their plans, I guess is my question. Did you just take theirs or had you considered?
And the walk themselves.
But they facilitated that walk.
Well, they let us through the area. I do wetland delineating
Yep.
myself, And I felt comfortable with the entire line. I didn't feel the need to bring in a third party.
It was and again, it was in November.
Yeah, yeah.
As you know, seasons change, what happens in a wetland. Um, and so if you happen to have the opportunity because of these complaints and your own observations, I think you should do that perimeter again, and see, what's there.
Yeah, I think we can write a letter. Yeah. Asking for access to the site to under, understand if they're doing any work on the site.
Anything that's dangerous there for the environment.
Anything that's dangerous.
Yeah, so my impression on that was, I kind of, again, I didn't know what the plans were. I thought we were gonna see an NOI kind of soon after the ANRAD. And
It's common, it's common.
and then we would have requested the cleanup that you had mentioned, and so I didn't think to pull anything then at this.
Not often we get these kind of big companies coming in with $1 million attorneys but we don't have our own agent that a lot of other towns, if not all of them, have that you can rely on to go do that. And that puts the residents of this town at risk. You have great volunteers, but can we get away with just volunteers doing something so important as having a wetland and a watershed right there?
The same person that we used up on, East Hill Road.
You go.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right.
His name's escaping me.
Anyone?
Yeah, Arthur Allen.
Yeah.
But time is of the essence with the season changing. If it gets dry,
So I think that, is that an individual that we could contract with
We
when
could
we get the
try.
notice
Yeah,
of
we
intent?
could
Okay.
go to his company and ask him if he would be willing to come out, because he did come out for the other one.
Okay.
You're saying when the notice of intent
Yeah.
comes through? Yeah.
What about?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we waste our money now
Right.
on doing it. I think the first thing that we do is we send off our letter. We go, we see what we can find out. And we gotta go to the Board of Selection to get approval for
For
these
what?
funds
To hire.
to hire. Okay. So I would let them know that that's coming.
With all due respect, I don't think it's wasting funds to do something preemptively before the NOI. And it's our funds, it's the town's funds. And I don't know what the finance committee has left in their reserve fund for FY25, but if there's any funds left in there, why not use them? I mean, it's June. Fiscal year closes in 28 days. Why not use them and jump on this? Again, I think the purpose isn't to even entertain an NOI at this point. It's to look at
No,
ongoing environmental damage and possible work going on.
Mm-hmm.
and if you don't know where the wetlands are,
So the committee isn't to do either of those things.
but if there are violations and you don't even know if the wetlands are delineated out in that back corner, are they flagged?
That bottom right part of the page that you.
No, the upper part, right?
Down near the very corner near the power lines. Is that the
I think
southeast corner? Southeast corner.
you're talking the
Southeast corner.
We did walk that wetland and that one looked appropriate as a delineation plan. Some garbage in there. Which again, I intended to bring up in the NOI from Chelsea.
I'm sorry, if I'm not mistaken, you guys said that you walked this in October, November last year,
Yeah.
which was, we were in a massive
Drought.
drought. We could not even cook outdoors on a barbecue. We could not even have a small campfire in our own private backyard.
Right.
This ground was dry.
No, I understand. The ground doesn't need to be wet or saturated to do a delineation. It can't help, but you go by
Immensely.
you go by the vegetation though, and other the soil
Soil types.
Soil.
We dug test pits, soil test pits.
and other indicators, water stained leaves, signs of channelization.
You didn't see vernal pools or anything like that?
No. The one location what's that?
I said not that I can remember.
No, and they probably would have been dry at the time, but the one,
Right, now you gotta find a vernal.
the one section, I wanna say the one section that, that I was told may be a vernal pool, we did look at it and it was dry, it was sort of that drainage swale-y looking thing that, in the end of he didn't have it flagged.
The one that connected.
Cause if you look at it on that,
Down, that was near where the, like, right. No,
I mean, they found that is wet.
right, if it, I mean, if it's
Very
flagged,
well be, but may not be a vernal pool.
right.
Have to find the animals. You have to go out and get it certified, or they're going to be covered over.
Which is why I think the Conservation Commission needs to investigate the complaints post haste, because if we go into a drought, the evidence might disappear.
They usually will,
Emails, so they can email you.
but it still takes time to have a vernal pool.
Right.
Because you need to find those animals in different times of the year. They're not always around. You need to get a little fishing net
Yeah.
to get in there and.
Oh,
go out there.
talk to, Mayor about it.
They are, and
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
But I think if the Conservation Commission identifies some potential issues in the buffers, that may allow more access to, if you happen to identify something that looks suspicious as a vernal pool, for them to determine.
is that it's not our property.
Right.
And even if we do find,
But if you've taken pictures,
you know,
No.
but it is a whole process.
Yeah.
Of doing it. I think it's, I was looking at it down there a while ago and looking, I said, yeah, I remember.
Went to kick.
I remember I did a class and it,
Other than that, I don't know who you are.
I know what happened.
Get it
done,
to you
I got
at
it
the,
down, but I can't go into somebody, I mean,
Yeah.
I've been denied
no, no.
property that I know has this beautiful vernal pool. I was denied to. I couldn't do it. And if it's not certified, it can be filled in.
wow.
Vernal pool protection is,
Very.
And that's federally protected if it's a vernal pool.
yeah, they technically need to be certified and the
Yeah.
process is,
That's
it's
why.
not hard, but nobody does it.
That's why I'd love to certify it. They just need the evidence.
Yeah, it is, and it's not easy to find the evidence sometimes,
No.
you know.
Absolutely.
We have one certified vernal pool in Oakham.
Yeah.
Out of, you would think out of all that we would have. in
Oh,
this
there's
town,
definitely more.
We have,
Oh, yeah,
There's more. It's just.
I mean, the town of Hunger's is littered with it, unless it's Hardwick, one of them,
yeah,
someone.
There's one right across the street from my house, I think, 360 Colbert Road.
well, you know.
But
it's
again,
certified.
and also that doesn't necessarily mean that if there's nothing that
That's right.
this won't be built.
Well, on their map, it shows that one of their tankers is gonna be placed within 100 feet of that buffer zone. And so if there's a vernal pool there, I don't think they can put that there. Now they can go and apply for moving things around, but hopefully we wouldn't do that. Hopefully the commission would consider the potential impact to our watershed, and to our water. If they're gonna go requesting that, and I think you need to go look.
Be encouraged.
Maybe a stupid question, but when company files for an exemption to work in the buffer zone, right? Are you guys the ones who make a decision on that? Whether they have the exemption or not?
Yes, so they,
They filed what, 4 exemptions, right? One being the buffer zone, one being they don't have the frontage. Literally, their driveway is gonna go right through my yard. Right, the side of my yard.
Wonder how that,
you're talking about
Exemptions to all the bylaws, right?
The bylaws
Yeah.
filed for exemption,
They're-
Yeah.
saying they're gonna be working within the buffer zone.
No, that was
That's-
yours, wasn't it?
I just- They also told me it's gonna be a car auction place, so I just let it go. I bought a house next to an old junkyard.
Right.
I'm a realist, I understand, I'm not gonna complain about it. Then they snuck in this thing. There's a whole Channel 7 news story coming out about it. They were at my house for an hour and a half. And this is her angle, is all the lies, and she's researching everything.
Yeah.
So you guys have to approve.
So, you know, in this new law, and again, you're coming to, the Conservation Commission, to a decision that was made at the State House that said,
Yeah, yeah.
hey, we don't want to let people like us make any of these decisions because these things won't be anywhere. So they established, the environmental justice, as a part of this, clause or a part of this law. They established, this environmental justice, commission, and they said, listen, we're taking the decision making out of your hands, and they're just going to be allowed to do this stuff. And so that is, listen, you're gonna preach to somebody else. But the good folks of Massachusetts, you know, decided that, you know, the world is gonna burn up and, you know, global warming's gonna kill us all. And that is certain. And so giving up a little bit of water, to save the world isn't the worst thing. Now, they didn't ask me when they did this stuff, but that's what they've decided. So,
But there's,
yes,
I'm sorry. Flagging. You guys went November, December to flag. What color were your flags?
Reviewed the flags, not
flags
placed
up
the
there,
flag.
right?
The flags were already there?
Yeah, we don't do delineation.
We,
Okay.
we walked with the person who did the delineation. And he explained to us why he did it, asked us if we agreed.
Those flags are no longer there.
yeah, they were there. They went right into my back property, right? They used to.
I went as a week and a half ago,
Yeah.
Bill
yeah.
Bass, walked the site. There's no flags. None of the wetlands are flagged. Oh.
Again, I think that's something we can add to our,
Well,
Yeah.
I use that rubber plastic, whatever it's made out of, tape all the time, and it doesn't last forever.
The only one there is one pink.
Yeah, I'll
Two
tell you
pieces of
what,
tape.
I'll tell you what, a spool of tape does not disappear.
Yeah.
In a year
Um,
or less.
But
It does.
that's the kind of thing I think when I would come through, we'd request that all of this needs to, if it's not flagged, it needs to be
Which is why
Yeah.
I'm asking to meet with the planning board.
I was looking for them in the back of my property, because one day, I guess you guys must have been with them. One day, all these flags showed up in my back field. And, I'm like, oh, that must be their property line, and now none of them are there, so I'm assuming nobody came and took them down. Unless they did, I'm assuming they all blew off, or,
We didn't take anything.
No, yeah.
some of them do, you know, they get blown, they're
Yeah,
Well,
they become,
things
they
that are
become
out-
brittle real fast, especially going through winter. They don't handle the cold temperatures very well. They get all cracked up.
but there's plenty of work, I think, for us to do. you know,
Yeah.
For the next,
Can I just let?
Yeah.
Tell us happened. To get back to Barbara's request.
Yeah.
Could we get from some semblance? That when I hear.
Yeah.
Would be here. I just would feel better if I knew what was.
what the action plan of this board is.
And if there is some way that we. Cover to do that.
So my 2 cents, I wrap it up as best I can. My 2 cents is that this board doesn't have really an action plan to end or to fight a park. Where our role is limited to enforcing the laws that the Conservation Commission is able to do so. And that during tonight's meeting, it has come to this commission's attention that potentially there is work being done within the wetlands. And it has come to this commission's attention that previously viewed items within the wetlands, which we thought would be addressed shortly thereafter, has, you know, nothing has happened, and we want to send a letter to the owner that a new site visit is warranted, and that during that new site visit, we'll we'll act accordingly. And second thing I think that we come up with is that, that I think we're all on board, that it is worthwhile to engage an outside professional to assist us through the process of what of the kind of interplay between what the environmental laws are and what the state of the land is. And then we would have one more professional to provide us with advice and counsel. And that we'd take the steps necessary to ask the board of selectmen or the finance committee, whoever it may be, to provide those funds to us to.
Would that be sooner or later that you'd ask them to provide the
So
funds?
these are the things that we're gonna do now. Or that I think that we're doing now, and,
Would you be able to give them a deadline as to when they respond to you? So you would have some idea. In other words, are they just gonna letter?
they could.
Yeah.
And so, and that happens to us sometimes from, citizens who, and whatnot. And so when that happens, really our next step is to go to legal. And so that's either, that's talking to town council about what our options are
So
to
you
get
give
there.
them a deadline and ask them to-
30 days or something that's,
From then it would progress to whatever you would feel
Yeah.
appropriate.
and I think that would just be on our next agenda, have we received a response?
Would that be a registered letter?
You can't call them. Their number's not listed anywhere. Unless you have it.
Zoval in Florida.
Zoval, oh yeah, Zoval is the owner,
They're
that's
the
right.
owner.
But Marega is the one that filed for the ANRAD.
What's it like with you on
The name.
the walkthrough? Was it someone from Russ?
There's three different
Was that wetland scientist employed by the company?
Yes.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
So they was the owner that hired the wetlands.
And I was looking, I thought sending things to New York
Well,
for.
so sometimes we know that and sometimes don't. Sometimes there's an owner of a property who's gonna do a project, right? Sometimes the owner of the property may say, well, I'll lease this property to you. I don't care really what you do with the property, and so that business, you hire those people. And that, really from our perspective, it doesn't matter who's paying the bill. It's, I understand from your perspective for putting a story together or for either fighting something that may be an area of interest. But I think our letter goes to the property owner. And if the applicant was not the property owner, the carbon copy should be going to the applicant. As well as if we know the name of the company that they've retained, a carbon copy to them as well. Yeah.
Chair, may I speak? Just to clarify that the documents that I was able to review, the signed order, the Epsilon letter that you received as part of the follow-up to the ANRAD, and one other document, I'll think of it in a minute. The stated applicant was Morega on the form that you guys received and had to sign. The property owner is listed as Zobel. Epsilon was nowhere mentioned in any of the forms. The letter from Epsilon was basically saying, hi, we're Epsilon, we're representing the applicant. So Morega hired Epsilon with the engineer. He was working for the project proponents, not for the town.
Right.
He also filed testimony, written testimony, along with the petition to the Energy Siting Board, which I read this afternoon. One of his statements was that in his professional opinion, this property did not require an environmental notification form be filed with MEPA. So this is what we're dealing with. So if he's willing to say that in writing, that's the guy you guys walked the property with, Mr. Bergeron.
Yeah.
So I have, I know we're not supposed to disparage anyone, but I have no faith in the credibility of that gentleman.
Yeah, so that's fine. You know, it's a legit opinion, but it's just that the name calling, we're not, you know.
Yeah.
But so I appreciate you, your thought and is well taken.
Thank you.
I think the more letters you can send them, even if they don't respond.
Trust me, this board can't do a letter writing campaign that's going to dissuade some multi-million-dollar corporation of anything. What we can do is our job, and we can do it to the best of our ability. And that's what we'll do.
So who do I need to talk to that actually can make a decision on the buffer zone? Because you guys can't. Right?
No,
No, we make decisions within the buffer zone.
You're not gonna listen. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
Or
it's interesting, but I think we gotta look at,
We're not there yet.
because we're not there yet.
Ecosystem.
When they do the notice of intent, and they're gonna say, you know, hey, we're not doing anything near a wetland, then there's nothing for us to do.
Chipping, they're already chipping brush into.
But
his
if they're
yard.
gonna do,
I don't know why you
stuff.
need to notice of intent.
because, because the guy who didn't.
Right, that'll be in the letter.
The guy
Yeah.
that wanted to do the Presby system there.
Yeah.
You didn't want him in the buffer zone.
Yeah.
So I don't see why these guys should get 4 or 5.
a chemical factory.
It doesn't make any sense. We're not down there checking on these wetlands after this rain. Just doesn't make any sense.
If they went straight to the state, are they gonna buy?
I'm gonna butt it to the property, and I can tell you how wet it is down there.
yeah,
Because I'm down there all the time. I'm walking that DCR property all the time.
The petition itself verifies that they know, and they're already filing as part of their petition, the deciding board, that they've got to come back to the local
Yeah.
committee,
Okay.
to commission for the NOI and the final delineation. So everyone's acknowledging that. So you guys definitely have another bite at that apple.
Ask for
I would
assistance from the Massachusetts Association of
That they're going
Conservation
to come back to
Commissions.
town.
Also,
They have to legally.
and this is a really big issue. You said you're doing everything that you can.
That when they were just going to do it on Zoom,
All of this, finding people.
which is absolutely ridiculous. They should be made to get their
absolutely.
feet in town.
Yes.
They need to meet the town as an entirety and not one group here, one group there, or on Zoom.
And not even answer the
They-
questions.
Here,
Mhm.
Absolutely.
plain and simple.
Mary.
Yeah, in our zoning, like all of the zoning,
Like,
that gets
they're-
written, so like I'm on
Wednesday-
zoning appeals, I have no say on whether,
That's right.
what it
That's
is.
not-
or
We're
not.
gonna, I plan on challenging
Yeah.
that as well
Yeah.
legally. I don't think they actually can do that. I think my opinion is that the 40A statute that they're using to have standing in the petition talks about a particular relief, not full relief, from a bylaw in a town. They're asking for absolute relief of 5. So I actually think there's a legal challenge there too, to all the other bylaws that they're trying to stomp on. So I know you guys are just about the wetlands but I still think that that's a really powerful lever here.
We appreciate your listening and know that we'll be back next month. And this will be
To support you.
online, so people can see the commitment that you have, and I mean, clearly the knowledge on berms and buffers and riverways and Presby's.
Get our way.
It'll be riveting television.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn or?
I'll second it.
I did. Oh, I did, sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Is there a 5th seat open, still available?
There are what?
Is there another seat available on the commission?
Yes, one.
So it's a 5-person board? Okay.